from the New York Post.
Woke Google Gemini refuses to say pedophilia is wrong after diverse historical images debacle. Individuals cannot control who they're attracted to. Wrong.
Now that is definitely deliberate. Okay, that is definitely deliberate. That's no mistake.
That is straight up queer theory. That is
all you need to know about who works at Google.
That is queer theory. You could probably find that in a book by
this is nuts.
Gail Rubin.
Google absolutely defending pedophilia. I'm not going to read any of this. It's outright espousing queer theory on pedophilia, defending it, saying labeling all the individuals as evil is wrong and harmful and blah blah blah.
They are.
Disagree. Strong disagree.
Yeah, the left has been defending in academia. The left has been defending pedophilia since at least the 50s.
The guy who coined what's the guy who coined the term gender?
Oh, I forget his name, but yes, I forget his name.
Big defender of it, wasn't he?
He was a defender. People like Foucault have defended it. Michel Foucault lobbied the French government to get the age of consent lowered when the age of consent was already 15 years old, and he wanted to get it lowered because he
was that in California?
No, this is Michel Foucault, the French government. He was
French government, okay.
the government of France. And remember, there was the
that was a long time ago too.
That was in the 70s or maybe even 60s. But then there was the cuties thing. Michel Foucault's talked about it. Mark Hughes has talked about it in I think Eros and Civilization.
John Money. Yeah,
John Money. This is something that Gail Rubin talks about in Thinking Sex. The idea that children have purity is something that the left rejects and wants to abolish. The way that they want to abolish gender, they want to abolish the idea of innocence. Okay, these are real things that the left actually writes entire books and papers and stuff on. So this is not like something that I'm fabricating. There are people that will make these arguments in sociology classes, and it's a real thing.
So we are at a point in our civilization where we're having an inability to remove ideological waste products.
Yeah.
So as everybody communicates and shares ideas, ideological waste builds up in the periphery. On social media, it begins to pile up and pile up and pile up. And I described this as for Jack Dorsey. He's a guy who created a network of ideological refuse on X, Twitter, and then piped it straight into his mouth. He was having all of the users shuffle their waste into his mouth. What I mean by that is he's a guy who came in as a classical liberal, traditional liberal, and said, we're the free speech wing of the free speech party. He created a platform which inadvertently or otherwise promoted ideological waste. These are ideas that are contradictory, that make no sense. Like, why is it that feminists support war? It makes no sense. Why is it that the left is in favor of calling Polish people of color? Like, these ideas are contradictory. They clash. They don't make sense. It's because ideas that should probably disappear, like 2 + 2 equaling 5, get ramped up and absorbed by people like Jack Dorsey, who then recycle that refuse back onto the platform into its code. What we're seeing now with Google Gemini is the epitome of people who have been swimming in the sewers of the internet. Then it's human centipede, okay? That's the best way to describe it. Jack Dorsey created the human centipede of ideology. And so what comes out the end is Google Gemini.
It's pretty close.
I mean, I do note here, you said you didn't want to repeat it, which is fair enough, but they're using the term minor attracted person status, which is the term that they are going to use over the next 10 years to normalize pedophilia.
There's another one that they like, which is intergenerational relationships.
Oh, wow.
Which is
remember when Snapchat said love has no age?
Oh, yeah. There was that.
Disagree again.
Disavow. But these things are normal in those circles, and they are going to continue to push these ideas into the mainstream.
Here, check this out. This is Ashley St. Clair posted this. This is several years ago. Watch this, 16 seconds.
Okay, so Snapchat has this filter: love has no gender, sexuality, disability, religion, and age. Why is age an option? I heard pedophiles were trying to get into the LGBTQ community, but did it happen? What do you mean love has no age?
Yes.
It's been that way.
There you go. Welcome to Google. Wow. But I mean, think about it. If you're an evil individual, you're going to try and find ways to get away with evil.
Yeah, I mean,
and so they infiltrate these institutions.
The argument that they make is that innocence is a construct, just like gender is a social construct. The idea that children are innocent is something that they want to do away with. And you hear it from a lot of the genderqueer sociology people, I guess. They call themselves scholars, I guess, but they're just trans people that dress up and look ridiculous. But they say things like children are kinky. Yeah. I forget the person who said that, but there was these ads going out where they were.
Do you feel like the queer community pushes back against this? So I mean, I think it's the bifurcation. Not enough
because most of the queer community doesn't realize how bad it is. Most of the
what does this word queer mean?
Queer is a politically gay, so it's essentially it's an identity without an essence. So it's not straight, it's not gay, it is the absence of a sexual identity. So it's something that changes and it grows, and it's a very postmodern concept. You can't really nail down what queer is, and it starts to get into things that are like Hegelian, when it is you're becoming queer. Like, we can never actually be queer. Yeah. We're only becoming queer. It's the action is the focus.
But I think, we saw this with the Gays Against Groomer movement, right? There are people who identify as gay, lesbian, whatever, who say, we don't want to be a part of this.
Those are the people that are not politically left.
I love it when they're called homophobes and transphobes because logic be damned. They called Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. It's Clayton's Bigsby. Like, these people that's why I said they are cognitively deficient. Their ideas make no sense. It is, look.
It's leftism.
I read about this experiment once. It took 3 families of cats. We like cats. And in one room, this generation was given raw meat. In the middle room, they were given cooked meat. And in the last room, they were given dairy products. And what they found was the cats that were given dairy, they kind of did okay. They had babies and things like that. The cats that were given raw meat were flourishing, having lots of babies, loving life, and the cats who were given cooked meat slowly started to fail. They weren't having as many babies. They were getting aggressive. Some had their hair falling out. And so it's one study, right? But now translate this to information. You have some people who are looking for a healthy information diet, and so they make sure to fact check sources. They listen. They hear Donald Trump did something, they say, prove it to me, show me the video. They try to be more resilient. Then you have people who are eating ho-hos and ding-dongs of news every single day. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen to their bodies? Their brains will rot within their skulls. They will literally become morbidly obese and then start promoting body positivity. I'm just imagining what happens when society breaks into 2 groups of people. One group that is cutting the carbs, exercising more, and one group that is saying it's totally okay to eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's every night. Mm-hmm. It's obvious. One will survive and one will not.
Yeah.
One side's aborting their kids, one side isn't. One side is sterilizing their kid, one side isn't. One side is trying to fact check and make sure that they know what's going on, the other side isn't. It seems inevitable.
One side is asking for constant accommodations and for you to understand, they don't have the advantages you have, even though you're choosing to live a lifestyle that makes you stronger and better. I think that's the weird fate that our culture is slating our young people to, which is that some will grow up being told you're victims always, and no matter what, someone's out to get you, and then other people will be taught to be resourceful and to use critical thinking and to adapt to circumstances, and it will become a bigger and bigger divide. The question is it intentional or is it accidental that there seems to be a mechanism filtering the weak-willed and the ignorant and low IQ into death, and everyone else will... It's creating. Is it natural selection or is it artificial selection? Is it Malthusians who believe the world's overpopulated, creating as much pressure on the human population as possible to reduce population? Or is it just that when a society grows to this size, like the mouse rat utopia experiment, you get this?
I think it's rat utopia. And I don't think that it's the size. I think it's how successful Western society is, how easy it is to survive.
struggle anymore.
I think the vast majority of the problems that people have, even the things that are real, right? The depression and stuff like that. Like I think that those are a consequence of our day-to-day lives being so different than what our psychology evolved to exist in. Because all of the stuff that's going on in modernity is all brand new compared to what we literally evolved from millions of years through to when we actually became human beings.
Right.
All of it's new. The
Yeah.
idea of being able to control having children and stuff, it's all new, and it's reaction to something new.
Let me ask you. What do you think would happen if it was like, I don't know, say 1300s, and Karl Marx came out and started advocating for what he was advocating for, in these places?
The king would chop his head off.
Yeah, probably. They'd be like, you are an insane person.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with you. These are heretical ideas, and it would result in the destruction of our kingdom. He'd go to the king, or he'd be writing on his parchment and sharing the ideas. The king would get word when people started adopting this, and he would say, "We have barbarians at the gates. We have our neighboring nation threatening to steal our wheat, and you think we should just give it all away?" Just off with his head.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. So my point with that is, when it was hard to survive and winter is coming, nobody would tolerate a person who would advocate ideas which would result in the destruction of your civilization. But today, what we have is, I was talking to, we're having a conversation on the Culture War podcast with Kristen Lacefield, and she was saying that the argument we're kind of having was, I was saying I don't believe that women, several hundred years ago would be advocating for birth control. And the reason why is because if you didn't have babies, you die. Whereas today, human civilization is very far from it. It's so far from population reduction extinction that the real threat is socially overpopulation and overproduction. So the narrative now is don't have kids to survive.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you go back several hundred years, the women were like, we need more kids. And the guy was like, I want 12 babies. And the mothers would be all laughing with each other about how many babies they're having. And the reason for it was simple. The women who didn't want to have kids didn't have kids and then didn't exist anymore. That's it. The ideology could not exist. Yeah. Now that we have the Industrial Revolution,
Exactly.
militarization, police forces, security, and guns,
Oil,
absolutely. All of these crazy ideas are allowed to exist.
Yep.
Not that anyone should say your idea shouldn't exist. It's just that they literally can't in any survival scenario.
They run into reality so much faster without the modern society and modern foundations that we have. Everyone that's communist likes to talk about, all these things will happen. But when they talk about the negatives of capitalism and stuff, they describe it in a way as if the negatives of capitalism don't happen in the absence of capitalism. People get sick when there's no capitalism. People don't have clean water when there's no capitalism. People don't have enough food when there's no capitalism. All these things that they blame on capitalism also happen in the absence of capitalism.
What do you think would
People are
happen
greedy.
if we took 100 communists, dropped them in the middle of, I don't know, like the Yukon territory, and said, good luck?
I'd find out if I could download the app and become a subscriber to the show.
Oh, right. Timcast checking in on our communists in the Yukon. I shouldn't say the Yukon, but like, let's say there was an area where it's like, okay, we're gonna take 100 communists and we're gonna put them in this temperate climate with some fields and some forests. Good luck. What would happen is,
well, don't forget,
communism would be gone in a week.
Well, don't forget, there's a lot of different types of communists, and there are some communists who are incredibly well trained. For military battle,
But that doesn't have an impact on whether or not you can find food. Like, you take 100
Well,
people.
I mean, that communism would evaporate, obviously. I mean,
So what would happen is 100 communists put in the middle of nowhere, and the incapable people, they're going to be like, well, look, you're 6 foot tall. You can reach all the apples. Go get the apples for us. And he's going to be like, I cannot do all of this for you. Well, look, he's 5'3" and overweight. He can't get the apples. So he's going to sit down and tell us stories. You go get the apples. He's going to be like, no, I got the apples. I decide. And they're going to say, that's not how communism works. And he's going to say, come and take it. Uh-oh. This communist guy is going to look at him and say, Molan Labe.
I mean,
2 seconds. I am not giving up my food. I don't want to starve. Winter is coming. Good luck. You're on your own. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.